Hi guys, and welcome to the CPFC podcast with me, your host, Alfonso Greenwood. Today in Pod 17, I'll be looking at a result over Stoke City and we'll be discussing the match, player rankings, my man match, as well as hearing from Pardew and a few players and what they had to say after the game. So let's begin.
And we're live. Club started at 1905. I turned up with the blue-red army. You know the homes, the fanatics on site. It's our game, it's our prime. Went from Ian Rat to Zaha on the right. When Soiree and Kelly's in the box, none of you man are getting inside. Nah, we're on point like needles. We stay fly so high, cause we eagles. But if you ain't CP, then you're not my people. I don't wanna hear no malarkey. I'm ripping the red and blue army. When Puncheon sends it to girl, the ball's gone off the net like Safari. Nah, don't panic. We ain't tryna wander like Alice. We run the wing just like Yannick. Delaney and Dan, they won't have it. Palace boys, we make magic. Them man talk the talk, they won't back it. Nah, don't compare us to none of these teams. We ain't in the same bracket.
You want some? Let's have it. You want some? Let's have it. The red and blue army. 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 The red and blue army.
Yeah, my team's ready to show, man. Watch how we boss up the middle like Johan. We put the ball in the box for us to hit him. It's no panic cause we got Connor Wickham. He needs Ballack, then we got Shamak. We got the fans screaming now, come on out, attack. Get the ball out straight out to Sacco. It's skippy defense like an iPod Nano. Big up Steve Parrish behind the scenes. Alan Pardew keeping up with the team.
Glad all over, everything's kosher. No goals going past Wayne Hennessy.
We're South Londoners, numero uno. We're staying at the top like Pluto.
Include Jedinak, Warden Addy. No chance, it's a Mars like Bruno.
The red and blue army. 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 The red and blue army.
Two goals from Dwight Gayle turned the game on its head and saw the Eagles claim the points that mathematically secure their place in the Premier League after beating Stoke City. Charlie Adam had given Stoke the lead at half-time, but a minute after the restart, Gayle notched his first after some fine play by Yannick Bolasie to create the chance, and then he put his side in front midway through the second 45 with a victorious free kick to score his 7th of the campaign. Palace started on the front foot and Johan Cabaye saw a free kick deflected just wide after 4 minutes, with Jakob Holg caught flat-footed. But Arnautovic responded in turn for the Potters with a shot that flashed over the top of the Eagles' crossbar, and Peter Crouch used his height to head a corner goalwards, but it was comfortable for Wayne Hennessy. The Welshman was soon called into action again when he made a good save with his legs to deny Shaqiri and Arnautovic after Arnautovic had slipped him in. But on 26 minutes, Mark Hughes' men took the lead in simple fashion. Ibarbo brought the ball into the final third and found Arnautovic, who acted as a pivot to control it and slip it behind the defensive line for the rushing Adam, who had tucked it past Hennessy into the far corner to score his first of the season. That seems to kill any momentum that Palace had been building, but Papa Soiree went close when he was picked out at the far post by his fellow fullback Joe Ward, but blazed the high ball out wide and tempered for the first 45 minutes to close. However, things got off to the perfect start for the hosts as they equalised just over 60 seconds after play resumed. Thanks to the dribbling ability of Bolasie, the winger drove forward and skipped past 2 Stoke defenders to get into the area. And after being bundled down Jeff Cameroon, Gayle was on hand to tuck the ball past Hogu and put his side level. After that, there was a low for Palace, as first-time substitute Joe Lilly managed just 10 minutes before being withdrawn again, and what looked to be a hip injury, as just the wrong time for the Welshman with an FA Cup final and Euro 2016 on the horizon. But Palace were much more in their stride now and were showing much of their creativity that they had mustered in the first half. On 58 minutes, a cross field by Soiree found Connor Wickham, who played the ball into Scott Dan. The centre-back squared for Gayle, who nudged it into Puncheon's path, but the winger blazed it over what could have been a fine team goal. A minute later, Wickham saw a header clip the outside of the post after a great cross from Soiree in the near-carbon copy of the goal that won the FA Cup semi-final a fortnight earlier. But Stoke showed their threat once again as Ryan Shawcross headed a corner narrowly under pressure from Dan. But midway through the second half, the Eagles managed to get ahead. After Gayle was hauled down 25 yards out from Shawcross, the striker picked himself up to blast the ball around the wall and into the net to move on to 7 for the season and into pole position as the Eagles' top scorer this term. However, with 4 minutes remaining, Stoke carved out a fantastic chance to draw level again as Stephen Ireland's curled pass fell perfectly into the path of Arnautovic, who rounded round Hennessy, but instead of rolling the ball into net, he tried to lash it towards goal and saw it fly over the top as the golden chance went begging. Knowing that they needed one more goal to seal the victory, the Eagles pressed for a third and Jordan Much went close from distance, but the 2-1 lead was ultimately enough to claim the win and top-flight football next season for Palace. Now to move on to the player rankings. Like I say every week and in every podcast, if you do have any disagreements or agreements with my player rankings, or you just want to comment something about the game, don't forget to drop a comment below the video so myself and other fans can see what you thought of the game and so we can have a bit more discussion. But like I said, we're going to move on to the player rankings. So start with Wayne Hennessy, and I'm going to give Wayne Hennessy a 7. A classic Hennessy performance, one fantastic save to deny Shaqiri 1-on-1, but almost handed Arnautovic a goal after rushing off his line. Luckily for him, the Stoke man missed an open goal. So Wayne Hennessy rightly deserves his 7, although he did concede the goal early in the first half. You know, he was able to make very good saves throughout the game, and obviously that warrants his high rating. You know, admittedly, he didn't have to do that much in the game, because, you know, Stoke, like us at times, weren't really a threat. But when Hennessy was called upon, he was able to make these big saves. And like the one with Shaqiri, he made himself big, stretched his legs out, and obviously to block it. Also, when the corners would come in, Peter Crouch would run into the area, header it, but obviously Hennessy was able to grab the ball. So, you know, a solid performance from Hennessy, not only obviously his saves, but his catching as well. And I suppose the one downside of his performance, which probably may have given him an 8, if it was slightly better, I suppose, was his goal kicks. Whenever I suppose nearly half of his goal kicks went out because he tried to pass them down the right, so either Joe Ward or Papa Soiree, whoever was on the side at that time, or Puncheon, Bolasie could, you know, get the ball far forward. But, you know, when he tried to do that, the ball went out and it didn't really work out. But other than that, the miscue, goal kicks, solid performance with Hennessy, made himself big, made lovely catches and lovely blocks. So an all-round good performance from Wayne Hennessy. Now to move on to the fullback, Joe Ward. So I'm going to give Joe Ward a 7. And as you may notice, quite a lot of the ratings are quite high. And that's because actually it was a very good game. And it's not only because we won. If we won, generally there's going to be higher ratings. But as a whole, it was a very good team performance. So, you know, I think it warrants the high ratings. So a better game from the Palace right back, who's positionally more sound than in recent weeks and spent most of the time shackling Arnautovic, which left the Stoke winger visibly frustrated. So like it said there, Ward has had one of his better games in a very long time. You know, he was stayed in that fullback position, so he was able to get forward rather than cutting inside, which he's done recently to defend. He's been making sure he stayed in position, keeping that sort of structure, and ultimately, you know, leading to us having being solid at the back. And another thing, I suppose, to concentrate on is his defending. Obviously, he was able to stop Arnautovic, the winger, from getting into the area. And ultimately, that led to us winning the game by being strong defensively. And you know what? Like I said, last few weeks he's been a bit off. You know, he's been drifting inside a bit too much. And at times he wasn't able to track back well, so he was going forward quite a lot. But this game, he managed to balance it out very well. He was able to defend very nicely. But, when he needed to, he would cut inside and then obviously get forward as well. So truly a good performance from Joe Ward, over average performance considering his season, and a very good game from him. Now to move on to the centre-back. So I'm going to give Dave so I would say captain, because he was the captain today. Obviously, Jedinak went injured, but, Delaney, I think it's the first thing to start off, he was the captain, he was superb, commanded the side very well. And for that reason, I'm going to give Damien Delaney a 7. Dragged out of position a few times, including that glaring Arnautovic miss, but otherwise was solid. So other than a little mix-up with Arnautovic, where, he gave the ball away and it was one-on-one with Hennessy, and obviously he scuffed the ball over the net. Other than that, Damien Delaney, like always, he was very solid at the back. And, he may not have had his best game in a while, but, when the ball was chipped and he was able to header it away, when it was in corners, he was able to header it away. Also making these last-ditch tackles, to stop players getting forward. And like I said at the beginning, his commandment, his making sure that players knew where they had to be, that was perfect. And ultimately, that led to a solid performance. All the players knowing where they had to be. And that moves me nicely on to his partner, Scott Dann. And Scott Dann, I would, looking at the ratings now, I was debating whether to put Delaney or Dan into the Man of the Match award. And I'll go on to talk about who I did. But, it was between these two people. I had, my 3 other nominations, and it was between Dan and Delaney. And I'll go on to explain, like I said. But, these two hot contenders, and obviously I could only pick one of them, even to put in the shortlist. So we'll have to wait and see for that. But Scott Dann, I'm going to give an 8. A classy performance from the Palace centre-back. He was infallible in the air and always looked to bring the ball down when possible and play it from the back. So obviously, Dan, I suppose it's pretty much the same as Delaney. He was solid at the back. Whenever the ball came into the area, he was able to header it clear. And on a few chances, we at the corner, he was able to get his head on it. Not necessarily come to anything, but the fact he was able to connect with the ball coming in just shows how the team are working well together. The chemistry is working well together. And I don't really know what more there is to say because, Dan and Delaney in the last few weeks, when they get the ball, they're being more, let's say, confident. So instead of passing it out wide and keep passing it, they're holding possession, they're holding onto the ball, making runs forward and eventually passing it forward. So, we want to see more of that. And, the last few games we've seen a lot of that. But, Dan, he thought, well, we need to make sure we can, win this game. So he thought, I'm going to leave the attacking and the passing to the midfielders so that me, Delaney, Ward, Suarez can concentrate on defending, make sure we don't concede any more goals. And I think that sort of concept, that idea worked really well because, you didn't see much of their attacking side, but whenever they came, whenever they had to defend because Stoke were on the attack, they were always there, they were solid, made these last-ditch tackles and the headers and all of that. So, not necessarily good at making these runs forward, but other than that, just obviously as a defender, you've got to be good at defending. And, they totally fulfilled their role against Stoke because they were just classy. Let's use that word, classy. So, good performance from both the centre-backs. And I suppose similarly to Delaney, he was commanding, obviously. Normally when corners come in, Dan would probably be the one more likely to go up. So Delaney would stay back and defend with maybe Ward. And obviously Dan, when he's in the box, Dan is commanding because when he gets the ball, he wants to be able to connect on it without anyone getting in his way. And he'd done that with ease. Now to move on to Papa Suarez. So I'm going to give Papa Suarez a 7. Much better from the Senegalese left-back, who remembered he needed to defend as well as attack. So that's something we've been discussing quite a lot recently. It's the fact that when Suarez plays, he's a very attacking defender. And the game against Stoke, he showed why he is a defender because he was able to track back on many occasions, as well as getting forward occasionally with the little runs and putting in crosses, which his crosses were superb, by the way. But, he remembered that he needs to defend and he was good at cutting inside, using his pace to cut inside. Another thing to credit him for is his clearances. When we're under pressure, the defenders are under pressure, get the ball to him and he can, clear it up the pitch in from very tight angles. And another thing, I suppose, is just sort of his headering ability because where he's in the box, you've got all the defenders in there. You want a defender to be good at, headering the ball out of danger. And like all the other, defenders, Papa Suarez done that really well. And, just the main thing to sum up his performance is just he was more defensive than attacking, and that is basically what we want from someone of his ability. Now to move on to Yohan Cabaye. So Yohan Cabaye's been a bit off in the last few weeks, and obviously he did get injured in this game, and it's not. We believe it's not a serious injury, but we'll have to wait till Thursday to find that out. But he did have a slight off game, but he did have a good game for the time he was on the pitch. Maybe if he didn't get injured, he would have performed better. But from what I saw and what he didn't do anything wrong as such. But for that reason, I'm going to give him a 6. Notte Finch's performance from the Frenchman, who was forced off at half-time with an injury. So like I said, there isn't really much to highlight about his performance other than just the passing, because where he's playing quite central, defensive, let's say, he's able to, receive the ball, pass it out wide, because obviously where he's playing injured, let's say, he's not able to make the runs which he did at the beginning of the season. So what's he doing? He's holding on to the ball, maybe making a run past the player, then finding a pass. And he's done that perfectly. And I suppose the only reason he's got the low rating is because we didn't see the full potential that he could have done during the game, because obviously he was forced off with the injury. And maybe if he didn't have the injury, he would have been slightly better, because he would have been able to make these runs forward. But other than that, don't put him down. It was a solid performance. And I think a 6 is an average what you would expect of a player. But, that moves me on to his partner, James Mcarthur. So I'm going to give James Mcarthur an 8. How Palace have missed this drive in midfield at times. A complete performance. It's like he's never been away. So, I don't know where to start with James Mcarthur, because he's an all-round player. Because where he plays as a defensive midfielder, you would, hope that he does his defensive roles, which he done perfectly. And unlike Jedinak, Mcarthur can play both defensive and attacking, and we've seen that recently. So with Mcarthur, we were playing a 4-4-2 formation, so he was paired with Cabaye. So obviously Mcarthur was making sure that he was solid at the back, so making these last tackles, putting his leg out to get the ball back, making runs to sort of block the passes or the crosses in, and he'd done that with ease. And a thing going forward, where we're playing a 4-4-2, if you don't pass it out to the wingers, the two central midfielders have got to supply the strikers, and he'd done that really well. And, he was able to make these lovely runs forward. And you say when there's a player in front of him, instead of just offloading the ball, passing it, he would run on the player sort of with his back to them, do a sort of 360 spin, get past the player, whether he find a pass or have a shot. He'd done a few different things on that occasion. But that's what we want from James Mcarthur. We want a midfielder who can play defensively, but when he needs to attack, he can go forward, do little spins to keep possession and eventually find a pass. And, he done everything well. And I suppose a word or a phrase to sort of sum up his performance is a complete performance, because he done everything you needed. He was defensive, he was offensive, and just overall fantastic. And, I think people say that we missed Bolasie when he was injured, and that's why we sort of went down in the league. But I think it's also down to James Mcarthur, because we lost sort of his defensive attributes, which we may have needed, during this hard time. But overall, a very solid performance from James Mcarthur, and certainly a hot contender for the Man of the Match award. Now let's move on to the winger. I say winger, he would normally play central, but a winger. And Jason Puncheon. Now Jason Puncheon had a pretty good game, and for that reason, I'm going to give him a 7. Some nice touches, but lacked that killer final ball in the box. Slipped when presented with a good chance in the first half. So Puncheon, where we normally play central, you would expect him to, have really nice touches, really nice passes. And he's done that with ease, It doesn't matter whether he's playing out wide or playing central. When he has the ball, he's able to make lovely passes or control the ball very well and offload it to another player. And he's done that very well with ease. And, the thing with Puncheon is his finishing ability. But at the end of the day, if his finishing isn't that good, as long as he's able to supply players who can finish, then that's all we want from a player, from him, his ability. Because he's one of these players who's always providing plays, always providing opportunities, and he's done that very well, Obviously, where he's playing on the wing, he's not really suited to that position, but, he cut inside, with the ball, found a pass or had a shot. One shot went just over the bar, almost a recreation of the goal against Norwich, but just the opposite side. So instead of on the right, it was on the left. Almost recreated that fantastic goal. But overall, a very good performance from him. And he, like Delaney, I suppose, very commanding, because Puncheon's sort of the captain, let's say, of the attacking players. He commanded them very well, so they all knew where to be. And that actually really worked, because he linked up very well with Gayle and Wickham. So he knew where they were, they knew where he was. So when he made these passes, they were able to control them and, take a shot on goal. But other than that, an all-round solid performance from Jason Puncheon, and another player who he have sorely missed. Now to move on to Yannick Bolasie, who I'm going to give a 7. At times unplayable, but at others a passenger. Improved in the second half and set up Gale's first with a strong run into the box. So a thing to highlight about Bolasie's overall game was, I suppose, he's one of these players who didn't have an average, he had a sort of average game, let's say, because he was good, he was fantastic, but only for small parts of the game. Whereas a player like Dwight Gayle was very good, but for the whole length of the game. So, we've seen this. And, when Bolasie was good, don't get me wrong, he was absolutely fantastic, and it just showed with Gale's goal. He got the ball from the kickoff, dribbled through loads of players, then, found that pass to Gayle and Gayle to score, Normally, Bolasie, he hasn't really got finishing touch. So, obviously, we passed it to Gayle, who did finish it. But, that is the sort of good thing we saw from Bolasie. We saw these runs, we saw this pace where he can cut inside, find a pass. And then for other parts of the game, you didn't really see him. But obviously, when the ball came to him, or the ball, was hit to him, or he went to have a shot on goal, he was fantastic, And if maybe all he needs to do for his game now is sort of maybe get rid of the sort of, bright moments in the game and sort of average it out, sort of slide it out. So he's good throughout the whole game, not fantastic throughout little bits of the game, but, slowly sort of average or, good throughout the whole game, and then maybe have these outbursts of fantastic skill. And he showed that, when we were 2-1 up, we're trying to get another third goal just to seal the win. And he was doing all these tricks and they were superb, I was looked at them and I was shocked, that he was actually doing it. He was just mugging off all the players, making these lovely skips and turns and getting past the players. And ultimately, them sort of skips, turns and runs led to the goal. So, a very good performance from Yannick Bolasie. We're starting to see more of his better self before he got injured. And just one thing to comment about him is maybe, instead of being good for sections of the game, or being fantastic for sections of the game, maybe he should try being good for the whole game, and maybe that would result in him having a better, bigger impact on the game. Now to move on to the first of 2 strikers in a 4-4-2 formation, and that is Connor Wickham. So I'm going to give Connor Wickham a 7. Played the big man role up front and linked well with Gayle, and that partnership was impressive, by the way. Was unlucky not to score when his header hit the post in the second half. So, I suppose I was talking to loads of people, throughout the game, before the game, after the game, and saying how Connor Wickham and Dwight Gayle would be the perfect partnership, and for this reason. They're 2 completely opposite players, but that works to their advantage. So, for example, Connor Wickham, he's very good at hold-up play, very tall, he's able to hold the ball up, but he's not very fast. Whereas Dwight Gayle is a very fast striker, isn't really good at hold-up playing because he's really short, but he's able to make these runs. And that 2 contrasting players in that partnership worked really well, because Connor Wickham was able to, say, hold the ball up and then pass it to Gayle, who would make a storming run, and vice versa. Gayle would make a lovely run, pass it to Wickham in a sort of difficult situation so he can hold up the ball and then turn around or have a shot on goal. So that partnership worked really well, and like it said, he was very unlucky not to score because with his height, I think he's like 6'3" maybe, the corner's whipped in, he goes to header it and it hits the post. So on another day, if he would have been, a few centimetres to the left, maybe that header would have gone in. But, the fact he's able to connect to the ball, take this chance, is what we want for a player from him. And like I said, a big man role up front, he performed that with ease. He was a threat in the box from crosses, from corners, and also from being supplied with the ball from the likes of Gayle, Bolasie and Puncheon. So an all-round good game from him, and hopefully maybe we can see this partnership next season with the pace of Gayle and the hold-up play of Wickham. Now to move on obviously to the second and final starting 11 and the striker, Dwight Gayle. So I'm going to give Dwight Gayle an 8. And before I start, I would just like to say he is undoubtedly the hottest contender for man of the match. And I'm not going to give too much away by telling you who I'm, going to give the man of the match to. But, I'm going to say he was a hot contender. But he was quiet in the first half, but deadly in the second. 2 well-taken goals and plenty of work to close down the defence in the front. So like I said, in the first half, most players, were a bit quiet. They didn't really see much of them. And ultimately, that led to us conceding the goal. But we came out, had that little break at half-time. We came out full of energy, and that resulted in the goal. 60 seconds into the first half, into the second half. Bolasie with the run, found Gayle. Gayle used his pace and his accuracy with a kick, kicked it into the bottom corner. Very well taken goal. And the other goal, I generally don't know what to say, because when I saw Puncheon and Gayle standing on a free kick, I thought, oh, here we go, here's a wasted chance. And then I just saw, Puncheon went to take the run up, and I thought, well, the wall's in your way. You're not going to hit it right-footed into the top left corner, and the wall already moved and jumped, to stop Puncheon. So Puncheon made a run, but he stopped, and then Gayle went to kick it. Gayle kicked it, it swerved around the wall, obviously because they moved for Puncheon, they thought Puncheon was going to take it, so the wall moved. Gayle curved the ball into the middle of the goal, or the middle of the right-hand side of the goal, and as he done that, he fell over, and I watched that, and I've seen loads of replays of it. And there is actually a video on my tour, or my exclusive stadium tour video. There is actually a video of Gayle's goal, and it was just superb, Puncheon went to striker, but he stopped. Then Gayle took it, swerved round the wall, butt into the bottom corner. And as Gayle done it, he actually fell to the ground. He slipped. And, he soon got up to celebrate, because that was an absolute thunder of a strike. And like I said, they were two fantastic goals. Two completely contrasting different goals, but both very crucial and fantastic strikes. And I suppose another thing to just talk about is, with his pace, he's able to close down the defence. And obviously, where most defenders are not that fast, he's able to weave in and out of them using his pace and eventually find a ball to Wickham. But, an absolutely fantastic performance from Dwight Gayle. And hopefully he doesn't get injured, and Wickham doesn't get injured, so they can carry on that partnership up front. Now to move on to the substitutes. There's not really much to talk about the substitutes, obviously, where there was 3 of them. But obviously, Joe Ledley replaced Cabaye. Jordan March came on for Ledley, who was the substitute. So Jordan March substituted a substitute. And obviously Bakary Saka came on. So Joe Ledley, I'm going to give a 7. Replaced Cabaye at half-time, but did a job for the 10 minutes he was on before the injury. So, Ledley, he was unlucky with that injury, his knee. But when he was on the pitch, he was solid. Obviously playing defensive midfield role. He was able to do that with ease, make these tackles, and also very good in the air. Obviously Jordan March came on for Ledley when Ledley got injured. I'm going to give him a 7. Because he did put himself out very well. He was able to, get on the end of crosses. And there was one chance where he had the ball from a pass from Bolasie on the edge of the area. He had a pop, and it literally just went over the crossbar. So maybe if he had maybe a few more seconds to control the ball from that pass, maybe that would have gone in. But, a very good performance from Jordan March. And you did feel his impact in the game with his sort of more energy and pace. And obviously Bakary Saka, I'm not really going to give a rating, because he was only on sort of the last 5 minutes or so, just for the fitness of Dwight Gayle. Obviously, brought off Dwight Gayle for fitness. Obviously, if he scored a goal, you want him next week because he'd be on fire. But, Saka came on, no rating, because you can't really rate him for being on for 5 minutes. But you know what? A very good fitness player. So there you have it. That's my match review and player rankings. Now for my man of the match. So now to move on to the man of the match. And like I say every week, if you do have any different opinions to me, or you thought someone else should have been on a shortlist for man of the match, do comment below so myself and other fans can see what you thought and see who you thought deserved the man of the match award. But before I start, I'm just going to give you the 4 nominations and then the results of my Twitter poll. So in joint 3rd place with 0% of the votes were Damien Delaney and Connor Wickham, which means in 2nd place with 15% of the votes is James Mcarthur, which means the winner of the CPFC podcast Man of Match poll against Stoke City is Dwight Gayle with 85% of the votes. So well done to Dwight Gayle, and congratulations to you on a solid performance. Like I say every week, you don't win a trophy or, a certificate or anything, but you do get my sincere congratulations for an absolutely solid performance. So they are my 4 nominations, and actually it was very hard to pick them 4, because as a whole, the team had a fantastic performance. And the only reason I sort of picked these players is because they were players from different positions on the pitch. I thought instead of going for maybe 4 attacking players, or 4 defensive players, or 4 midfield players, I thought I'd go 1 from each, pick out the best players. And that's what I did. So obviously Damien Delaney, the defender, solid at the back. Maybe Dan could have been in the shortlist, but I picked Delaney just because of his commandment. Obviously James Mcarthur in the midfield, able to make these runs forward as well as being defensive. Very commanding, and also, was able to supply the ball. Obviously Connor Wickham and Dwight Gayle, the reason they're up front is because their partnership was insane. It was a really good partnership. They worked really well together. Obviously Connor Wickham was good in the air. Gayle, obviously, for the 2 goals. And that's basically just really a summary of why, they thought, I thought they should have got man of the match. But like I said, if you think that someone else should have won it, do comment it below, because I know that there were a lot of good performances, against Stoke, and maybe we want to acknowledge the good players. And, another player I suppose who missed out on this was actually Wayne Hennessy. And although, he did concede that goal and maybe could have done better, and, the other chance where he was off his line, and obviously the Stoke player did scuff it over the bar, but, he could have made a mistake there. But the reason he could have been on the shortlist is because he made the crucial save, and also when Peter Crouch would come into the area and make a header, he was able to catch the ball. So, there's loads of players to put into contention, but I did round it down to obviously these four. And to be honest, it was quite an easy decision, unlike in the last few weeks, because of a player who scored 2 goals. And obviously I've given it away now, but I'm going to give it to Dwight Gayle. So congratulations. You don't win my trophy or anything like that, but you do get my sincere congratulations, because it was an absolute solid performance from you. And I think your partnership with Wickham worked really well. And like I said in the player rankings, they're 2 completely opposite players, but that works to their advantage. And Gayle, just his pace was insane. His first goal was a very good, tucked it into the corner, and he got the free kick, lovely curl on that, lovely power. And ultimately, that's what I'm going to give him the man of the match. But other than that, even if he didn't score 2 goals, he was very good up front, with the ball. He was able to create chances, if he wasn't able to take them, he'd pass the ball to the likes of Connor Wickham or Bolasie, someone else who, could chip the ball in. But overall, a very good performance from the whole team. But Dwight Gayle's performance stood out for me because he was just absolutely solid up front. So there you have it. That's my podcast review. Now we're going to listen to what Pardew, Keith Millen and Joe Ward had to say after the game.
I think if you look at the history of the F.A Cup and this division, getting to the final can sometimes cost you your status. And obviously we're very conscious of that. The first half we were brilliant of the season, and then our focus shifted to the cup a little bit when we had injuries, and maybe a bit too much. And we struggled to get momentum back. We got a good team, and we had some injuries, etc., etc. But I'm pleased. In a way, the Norwich result, I don't think it helped us actually today. It kind of got us safe, that Manchester United win, ironically, Man United as a result. And we were really struggling first half. Didn't really have our focus, but second half we sorted it out, and we were very good second half. I was really pleased second half. That's the sort of display we're going to need to do at Wembley if we're going to win.
What did you say to the players at half time?
Well, I thought it was very important that we just focused on what we're about. We was trying to play a game of football that isn't natural to us. And you can sometimes do that at the end of the season against a team that probably, Mark would argue, didn't have a lot to play for. But it got too stretched, a bit too casual, a bit too friendly really. Second half was much more like us, tighter game, and our technical players started to cause problems.
Is it fair to say we've seen your centre forward number 2 goals?
That is a loaded question that I am not going to answer.
That's a good time for him to score 2 goals.
Yeah, I mean, Gailey's had a funny season because injuries and our form in the first half of the season has really limited his time. And then we had a little problem with him because obviously he wasn't getting game time. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? And me and Steve were talking to him about a new deal. In the end, we managed to do that and we secured him. And the reason we secured him is he scores goals. He's got, he does, and I think he was 10 last year. Those 2 goals today were massively important. They were both great strikes, and he's put himself in contention, of course, for Wembley. I would say, and I thought you was referring to Connor, because I thought second half he did a lot better. He started bringing players in at the top end of the pitch rather than it keep coming back through our midfield like he did in the first half. And they were a problem, the pair. It was good to see.
And you've maintained that once Premier League survival was secured, you've signed the contract. Are we safe to assume that you do that now?
Well, there was a bit of misconception about the contract because the contract was agreed some time ago. But, I know this football club, and it was very, very important that the status was secured for me to warrant that contract, in my opinion. And now it is, I will happily sign it. There's been no question of me not signing it, unless we went down, and then I would have asked to ask them if they wanted to do it, if I'm honest. So there's no problem with my commitment to this football club. We have a great opportunity. I don't think in the history of this club we've had 4 years in the top division. I'm in a privileged position in that we have investment from America. Steve's on the rudder, steering us to hopefully become a bigger club and the biggest in South London. That's what we want to be. But we haven't got the infrastructure to do that. So it's about building the club, and that's what we're going to try and do from this day forward.
You picked up the 2 injuries today as well, are they?
Yeah, I think Yo's okay. He got banged about a little bit today, as normal. Joe Ledley got a knee in the calf. But there's a few old hacks in here. They'll tell you that when it's cup final, everyone seems to be fit with about 3 days to go.
Do you say how long your contract will be then now?
I can't recall, if I'm honest. I don't want to make a mistake on that.
And in the award-winning programme, you mentioned in your notes about team spirit of Leicester and what you're going to look at next season. And on the pitch as well, you talked about the squad, about, okay, fans might laugh when you said it, but you talked about players coming through administration, that kind of club. Despite just the 2 league wins this year, how proud are you of the squad? And what are you looking forward to next season working with them now that you've got most of the players signed to contracts and maybe 1 or 2 you've got to still sort out?
I think I felt a little bit sorry for the team in terms that we lost our offensive line for a period. It's unusual to do that. You know, you can lose a defender and midfield player, have an injury crisis, but it's kind of spread around the team. That would cause us a problem. So I really have to take my hat off, particularly to the 2 centre halves, because I think they've seen like the team disintegrate at times at the front of the pitch, and they're trying to keep it all together. And the leadership we have in the group is very, very strong. That's the basis of what we're about. And the second half of the season, we should have had stronger results with the injuries we had. That's a little bit of a concern that I have to look at in the summer, and I have to address. And we will change 3 or 4 members of the squad, but it won't be radical changes. We know we need to go forward. We wasn't far away with our best team, so try and keep our best team, and then add a little bit more quality around it, and we'll be fine.
Like you said, the second half performance was more of what Paz were doing before.
Yeah, we just looked like we didn't have no verve and energy, and that's what we're about. The DNA of this football club is energy and being exuberant in our kind of play. That's how we've been front foot. If we don't do that at Wembley, we'll get beat. So that was really the message at half time. Going back to the question earlier, if we're going to play in the cup, we can't just turn it on in the cup final. Do it now. So fortunately, we did. The Southampton game, I can look at with a view of trying to win the game, but also protecting 1 or 2, and I will.
How forcefully did you make that point at half-time? Was the hairdryer treatment
No, I don't think that needs to come into the public forum, but I think it's important, and I'm experienced enough to understand. And I was speaking to one of your close allies, Damo, at the end there. You can't help but have one little eye on the cup. You can't. As a manager, as a coach, as a staff member here, as a fan, as running the PR or whatever, you can't help it. But sometimes you just need to kind of knock it out of the way. So we managed to knock it out of the way. But we were thinking a little bit about it after.
Keith, great atmosphere here today. It was a good way to finish the season, wasn't it, at home?
It was. It wasn't great at half-time walking off. Quite rightly, there was a few boos. We didn't perform first half. We was too loose, too sloppy. We changed it at half-time, and second half was what we were good at, really. We was up and at them. Yala sparked it off with a great run, didn't he? And we've scored. So we deserved to win second half, and it was great to finish the season like this. The fans have gone home happy. We can look forward now to the cup final.
Yeah, and Dwight Gayle, top scorer in all competitions this season now, out of nowhere. If you put him on the pitch, he does score goals, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, he does. He was excellent today. He was man of the match for me. even first half he was dangerous. He deserved his goals, he worked hard, and we know when he gets his chances, he's a good finisher. We see it every day in training, so he took his chance today, and he's given the manager a nice little headache now for the next 2 games.
Yeah, safety is secured now. Chance to just kind of relax and look forward to the FA Cup.
Yeah, no, we sort of knew before the game we were safe, but and we keep on to the lads about staying focused, but it is very difficult. When you're in the Premier League, you have to play at your maximum. Well, we certainly do. And you have to have that edge about you, and you can understand the players losing a little bit of that edge. What do you mean? It's the biggest game in their lives coming up. So we've really tried to keep them focused. And second half we were. We've got to try and stay focused now for Southampton, but we can enjoy it. We're just fighting for league position now, and if we can get another win, push us up the league, it's a good year all round.
Thank you very much, Keith.
No problem.
Cheers. Joel, good way to finish off the home season today.
Yeah, definitely. I think second half was more of the Crystal Palace I think everyone loves to see, and we dug in deep second half and got the result that we needed.
Good turnaround pretty much straight from the start of the second half. What was said at half time?
Well, obviously I can't reveal what was said at half time because that stays within the 4 walls of the dressing room, but we knew we had to come out and have a reaction, and we done that, and Gailey's come up trumps for us.
Yeah, 2 goals from Dwight Gayle. He's top scorer now. You've probably played against him in training. What's he like to play against?
He's a natural finisher. He knows where the goal is, and you can't give him any space. Works his socks off, and he got what he deserved today in those 2 goals.
And a lap of appreciation today, a chance to say thanks to the fans for their support.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first half of the season was incredible, and I think there was a lot of anticipation ready for the second half, and they've stuck with us what has been a difficult second half of the season, but we've got the final to look forward to now, and I know all of the fans are going to be right behind us, and hopefully we can bring them back the FA Cup.
Thanks, Joel. Have a good night.
So there, now you've heard what Pardew had to say. That concludes my match review of Crystal Palace versus Stoke City. But make sure to come back next week for my pre- and post-match review of Crystal Palace versus Southampton, or Southampton versus Crystal Palace if you want to be pedantic. So thanks for watching, and remember to up the Palace.
Southampton!